What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Jenks Island podcast, the only NFL podcast where you get your takes from washed up Division III cornerback and his friends. I'm your host, Grayson Jenkins, joined again by my great friend and co-host, Ty. In today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the Brendan Sorsby news of he was finally, kind of said, I'm done with the college. I'm not going to appeal anymore. He was going to go to the NFL. NFL says, nope, we're not having it. They shut down the supplemental draft rumors. It's not happening anymore. And so what does that kind of say about the situation? We're going to react to both sides of the story, both Brendan Sorsby and the NFL, say who we kind of think is in the right and the wrong, all those kinds of things. I am coming off of, if you couldn't hear or see already, that my face is a little bit messed up. I got a filling just an hour ago, so I'm still numb. So I'm pushing through for the episode. We're getting this thing done. But after we break down Brendan Sorsby, we're going to also talk about Geno Smith. We're going to talk about Brenton Strange and Kyle Pitts, their extensions, and then we have a couple fun things to end the episode with, so make sure to stay till the end. With that being said, Ty, getting right into the Brendan Sorsby discussion, what are really your thoughts on, the NFL moving on and deciding not to do a supplementary draft this year, and how do you think that affects your eyes on this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's shit, if I'm gonna be honest. I don't understand the NFL stepping in an incident that happened in college. He was penalized in college. It's gone to court. Obviously, some of the court stuff may be contentious, right? The NCAA was, filing against it. But what at the end of the day, the NCAA had laid down the punishment and he accepted it. He accepted that he was no longer going to be eligible to play in the college football season. And that is what the supplemental draft is pretty much made for, right? Players that lose eligibility, that are looking to continue their careers. You obviously have to be eligible for the NFL, and Brendan Sorsby would be. Could have went into the draft this year, decided to come back to Texas Tech, obviously, or excuse me, transfer to Texas Tech, and then didn't work out. So I think, I think the NFL is kind of out of bounds on this decision, right? He already got his punishment, and the NFL has not stopped guys from doing much worse things and getting drafted in the NFL, right? Not even talking about guys that have been in the NFL and got in trouble off the field and then got punished, right? They got suspended. We're talking about guys that got no punishment at all. Jalen Carter killed someone, allegedly,
Yep.
in a hit and run. I mean, not even allegedly. He killed someone as the driver in a vehicle. He pled not guilty to reckless driving, yada yada. But at the end of the day, that is just the reality, right? Tyreek Hill beat his pregnant girlfriend. Like, we're talking about serious world, issues. And I understand that a gambling addiction is definitely an issue. It's not even close to those things. And he was already, and even if you want to say if it's in the realm of that, he already got his punishment from the NCAA. So I think the NFL, I think it's a power play. I don't get it at all. I know that gambling is a huge thing in the sports world nowadays. And we have to be careful about it. We don't want players becoming addicted. We don't want players, rigging games by betting on games. But the NFL has also had a guy, Calvin Ridley, who literally played,
Yep.
a year later after being suspended. And the NFL laid down that suspension on him because he was in the NFL. Brendan Sorsby was not. So I don't understand the whole decision about, he can't do the supplemental draft. They might want to blame it on paperwork and the timing of it all. But I think reality, it's just a power play by the NFL. And it doesn't sound like they're too, 100% on he's going to be eligible for the 2027 NFL draft either. It does seem like the language around what they said is kind of up in the air. So I think it's crap. I'm not a fan of the NFL in terms of this, this decision. What's next for Sorsby? I think he's got to either try to get into the CFL or play half a season in the UFL, obviously because their season stretches over the draft time. So, he's got to find a way to get some tape out there because like analysts have talked about for, months now, this guy was going to be a first round prospect. And a lot of other guys are going to have the ability to put a full year of tape out there in college football. That might hurt some of these guys that are viewed as a first round prospect.
Mhm.
It could help a ton of other guys that are viewed as maybe a little bit later or were viewed as first round prospects behind Sorsby. And that would jump him just because they don't have the off the field issues, but also because they have the extra year of tape. So I'm not a fan of it. I would have let the teams decide whether they want to take that risk or not because he wasn't betting on NFL games. Leave that up to the 32 organizations if they want to take on that risk of something that previously happened and that he sought out help for and is seeking, working
Mhm.
past this addiction. But I just think it's a ridiculous decision by the NFL.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat as you, Ty. Like you said, there have been other guys that have gotten into the league through more uh, less ethical actions. This is more of an NFL deciding this could impact us and our bottom line, our profits, our revenues. If people start questioning the integrity of the game, they're worried about themselves, but they haven't worried about others being impacted by players' actions that they let into the league. And I think that is a questionable act itself. And also in the letter that they sent to Sorsby, they say, as Commissioner Goodell has emphasized, participation in the NFL is a privilege that carries with it significant responsibilities, including accountability. By all accounts, you are a talented player with the potential for future success. We encourage you to focus on preparing for possible entry into the NFL through the 2027 annual draft. So it's not like they're preventing him from coming to the league. He's still going to come into the league in 2027.
Possible.
Possible. Yes, possible. So in my eyes, if they are going to potentially let him into the 2027 draft, which they might not, you never know. In my eyes, you give a suspension, maybe match his NCAA, whatever you want to say, like you ban for a year. You're not coming into the league for years. You're suspended. You can't play. Then a team has to take that on. Is it worth taking that risk of his suspension, things like that? If he goes through the supplementary draft, no one picks him, he's a free agent. Then he gets maybe signed for the like not vet minimum, but the rookie minimum contract that he could possibly sign for. Things like that. That all are possible options that are different than just saying, yeah, no, we're not having a supplementary draft this year. And on top of that, the NFL, like STERB, Ty and I were kind of discussing all of this. The NFL makes $132 million from sports gambling sponsorships, paying for their data analytics and everything like that to be available to those gambling sponsors as well. But when you are putting out every single game, every single ad break, oh, we're sponsored by FanDuel, oh, we're sponsored by DraftKings, Prize Picks, whoever, that provides a conflict of interest. Already the integrity of the game is being questioned because every single game you have people saying, oh, this moment could have been fixed. This moment could have been fixed. Why didn't the ref call this? Why didn't the ref call that? All of those things are going to be questioned because you are sponsored by these places that are pushing people to put their money on the games. Every single week you get profit boosts. You get things like that to put a little bit extra money to entice people to putting money on these games. And then if things don't go their way, the integrity of the game is going to be questioned one way or another. So I don't think it's fair to say, oh, if we bring him into it, and like you said, Ty, he's already gone through rehab. He's gone through ways to, push against this addiction that again could have been caused by all these ads pushing a young person into an addiction, an addicting act, an addicting substance, things like that. Like we've seen with drugs, alcohol, things like that. Other players are addicted to those. This is an addiction. He went to rehab, and I think the league should be a little bit lighter on it because of that. And like you said, it wasn't while he was in the NFL, it was before. So a couple of different things to look at there. It's just interesting.
Yeah, and I think the NFL is opening a real can of worms if they do not allow him into the 2027 draft. I mean, they're going to open themselves up to a huge lawsuit. His lawyer is the guy who basically created NFL free agency. He sued on behalf of the NFLPA and created that collective bargaining agreement that created free agency in the 90s. So they are fighting against a giant if they decide not to do that. I mean, I know that they already said that they're going to pursue some legal action or some, how it's I think his lawyer said it's against the CBA and what the NFLPA stands for. But yeah, they are opening a real can of worms that I don't know that the NFL wants to get into.
And I mean, I get it, right? Brendan Sorsby spent $90,000 as a college player gambling. Like that is a lot of money for a college athlete to gamble. But like I said, it's an addiction. Like once you start, you can't really stop at a certain point. Like he got addicted and he just started betting on whatever. There was numerous things that was like very random, obscure bets that he was
And
placing.
yeah, those are huge tells that obviously that it is an addiction. I also
Mhm.
think you can kind of tell it's an addiction. He wasn't, as far as we know, from all the the stories that we've heard, he wasn't fixing anything, right? He was betting on his team to win when Indiana was dog shit. I know it, in some people's eyes that means no different. It means a lot to
It's a
me.
difference, yeah.
It's way different to me, right? That you're not fixing games. You're betting because you have an addiction. So Listen, I think that the NFL has just mishandled this entire situation. I understand what the college game did, right? That was their rules against their rules. He was an NCAA athlete. They suspended him. That was fair, right? And I think they were right to challenge it in court. I think that he was right to say, okay, I'm going to pivot to the NFL. I just don't understand the NFL taking this stance on someone that wasn't in their organization when
Mhm.
they have never taken a stance on someone not in the organization like this before.
Yeah, and it just is it's just questionable. Like we've said, is just the ethical side of it is yes, you do this, you don't allow this guy in for gambling while you still promote gambling actively. That is questionable in itself. I think that's a conflict of interest. If they were to take this stance and then say, we're not going to promote gambling anymore at all, I think that would be a reasonable thing to do because you aren't on both sides of the fence. You're on the side of the fence where you're profiting directly from gambling, but also on the fence of we can't associate ourselves with gambling, a player that gambled in his past, which I think it's fair to say that, oh, the integrity of the game could be challenged, but also it happened before he was in the NFL, like you said, and he's young. He was a young person influenced by numerous other things to kind of get him to do this, and he was addicted to it. Went through rehab, went through the process to get away from it, and I think that he should be fine. So I think he should be let in. So I don't know. I think we're both on the side of the fence that it's just the NFL should have let him in, and I think I'm interested to see what the NFL does next year when it comes to the draft because this was all over the place the last few weeks, and all dynasty owners and dynasty GMs were kind of waiting this one out. So it impacted fantasy pretty significantly for all the dynasty owners out there and dynasty managers and commissioners. Ty and I are both commissioners in separate leagues, but so we had to kind of figure out what to do with Sorsby if he came into the draft. Now we can push that off for another year. But Ty, any closing thoughts on Sorsby?
No, nothing. I mean, I think I've pled my case and I've made my side pretty clear.
And I will say this, STERB wasn't able to join us today, but if he did, he would have been very aptly against Sorsby coming in. And he recognizes the ethical sides of things, but it's more of just the integrity of the game, question marks, and things like that. So things to note as well. Anyways, moving on to the Kyle Pitts and Brenton Strange deals. Kyle Pitts just signed a 3-year, $54 million contract extension with the Falcons with $36 million guaranteed. Ty, what are your thoughts on this contract and what does it mean for the Falcons' future for the offense?
Yeah, he just became the third highest paid tight end behind George Kittle and Trey McBride. After a real breakout year for Kyle Pitts, he became one of the all that potential that we talked about with Kyle Pitts. We started to kind of see it, right? It's not the full potential that we saw, out of him as a prospect and what he could
Yep.
be as that kind of receiver type of tight end. But they had to lock him up, right? Because outside of Drake London, they don't have any real receiving threats. Now, obviously, Bijan is an awesome threat, but just talking about, in the wide receiver and the tight end room, maybe there's some hope for a guy like Zechariah Branch, but it's like Jahan Dotson, Olamide Zacchaeus, right? They, outside of Pitts and London, lack talent. And with the quarterback situation in flux there, with, whether it's Tua or Penix, they need help, right? They need receivers. And you saw what, Pitts was able to do with subpar quarterback play last year between Penix and Cousins. The talks are that Tua has been, looking good in camp, and has looked, his accurate self again. So, I think that bodes really well for Kyle Pitts fantasy owners. But it's obviously a pretty penny, but he's 25 years old. He's still that blue chip prospect, and we're still seeing him grow year after year. So I think it's worth every dollar for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it because I think we have definitely seen flashes, and he's still a young player. The interesting thing for me is now they have a lot of their cap wrapped up into once Bijan gets his deal, it'll be Bijan, London, and him. What does that mean for the rest of the team? I don't know. You have to figure out your quarterback. If they hit on a quarterback, it truly does open up a window for them to be successful and possibly reach out for a Lombardi trophy. Until they have that quarterback, they can't do that. And they have to, with all of this being said, probably hit on a rookie or a vet that just comes over for very cheap, which could be Tua, who knows, going into this season. But if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to pay a top dollar, I don't believe, unless you kind of restructure everything and push salary cap all sorts of around like the Saints do and other teams have been doing in recent years. You're going to struggle to figure out the salary cap in my eyes. But I think it's the right move for them to lock these 3 guys down. This is the core for this team. This is the core for their offense. The defense we saw last year was improved. James, Pierce Jr. is probably going to be out. I think
No,
he's
he's
actually gonna
fine.
be good. Yeah,
They dismissed the case. He's back.
that whole situation is crazy, but the defense looked better after last season, after their draft going into last year. The defense looked like it significantly improved. They hit on a lot of those rookie draft picks on the defensive side of the ball. Now, if you lock down these 3 guys on offense and you possibly find a quarterback, you could be rolling. So, I think this is the right move for the Falcons. Moving on from him, and now this was the more surprising one in my eyes. Brendan Strange signed a 3-year deal worth up to $48 million, which I believe makes him the 4th highest paid tight end in terms of average per year at this point in time.
5th.
Fifth highest paid tight end, which is insane, Ty. If we're talking about Brendan Strange, yes, he showed flashes. Yes, he showed flashes, but in my eyes, it's insane because they just decided to go out and draft Nate Borkature relatively high in this most recent draft. You go and draft him, and then you pay this guy this much money. But Brendan Strange did have flashes last season, Ty. I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, Nate Borkature was never going to be anything more than a
More of a
blocking tight end for them, right? He had like
yeah
200 yards in college. Obviously, way too high. We
for
kind of
a
saw the board
second
go
round
that.
pick. Yeah,
Yeah, we saw the board kind of go that way with a lot of the blocking tight ends go higher than some of the receiving threats in this class. Kind of a weird trend. I think it was just, with the whole class being weaker, teams were just trying to find guys that, would be contributors for them. And a blocking tight end is obviously, important to have, but at a premium, not so much. I think, the Gladstone, their GM is just kind of lost in
he's
how he's
in over his
building this
head.
team.
Yeah,
He's made some good moves and then he's made some terrible moves, right? Like, he's kind of been all over the place with letting Lloyd and ETN walk. Is Travis Hunter going to work out? But then they hit on Jacoby Myers. They've just kind of had a weird construction of this team. But I like the Strange move. I think, he's 25. He's still getting paid less than TJ Hawkinson, which, is a lot of money, sure. But TJ Hawkinson, this point in his career is like, a waste of space out there for the Minnesota Vikings. So I like Strange. I think he's definitely shown a ton of improvement. Late in the last season, he showed some strides. When he can be healthy, I think he's a good tight end. And we've seen what Liam Cohen can do with tight ends, right? Dating back to Tampa Bay with Kate Otten, that was his best year in the NFL so far. Back when he was with the Rams, Higbee was kind of rolling back then. Gerald Everett. So Liam Cohen has had a lot of success with tight ends, and I think that'll only continue with Brendan Strange. They need another, they need the passing game to be kind of rolling with losing ETN. Obviously, they have some good receivers on the outside with Myers, but can BTJ bounce back? What's up with Travis Hunter? So they need Strange to kind of be a steady piece for them. And you saw that him and Trevor Lawrence had a solid connection at times. So I think it made sense for them to bring him back. I was a little worried that they might not because they have Borkature and then they signed Tanner Koziel as well, who's a decent receiving option. But I think that, I was worried because I have him in Dynasty. But I think, Brenton Strange is a quality tight end who could be a top, you know, 10 to 12 tight end in this league. And the $16 million that you're paying him, it could be worth it. They're not paying a running back right now. They got Chris Rodriguez and Basil Toon for pretty cheap. So that's the trade-off, right? You get rid of ETN, you get 2 cheap backs, and you keep your tight end, who's Trevor Lawrence's safety blanket. So I think it's a solid move, but I think, the Pitts one made more sense.
yeah, the Pitts move definitely makes more sense in my eyes. Yes, Borkature was definitely going to be a blocking tight end, but I don't think Brendan Strange has done anything to necessarily justify this being the market. I'm surprised they gave him this high annually. I think the guaranteed is like 25 million. So I think that's fine. If he ends up only making that guaranteed money, I don't think you're really overpaying there. For a 3-year deal, that's pretty much where I would say his value is. But the up to $48 million worries me just because he's never been so far, right? Like you said, he was kind of a safety blanket at times for Trevor Lawrence, but he hasn't been an explosive weapon for the team. And I think that's kind of what I'm wanting out of a top dollar tight end. I want a guy that can be more of a home run hitter, things like that, be more reliant, and has already proven something. I think all the guys above him have proven something, and a few guys below him too on the contract. If we just look at this, I mean, Jake Ferguson, I would take over him. I would take, geez, Cole Kmet's contract is just crazy, but
I mean,
Jake Ferguson. Sorry, go ahead, Ty.
what screwed the market for tight ends was Isaiah Likely getting $13 million
Yeah,
after
but
being a backup for his entire career, not being able to stay healthy. When he was healthy, not barely showing some flashes at some points in time. Like Isaiah Likely is more so than anything the biggest overpay at the tight end
you
position, just given what we've seen from him. I think everyone's like the upside's there, the upside's there without Mark Andrews, but we haven't really last year was a pretty bad year for Isaiah Likely.
would you take Brenton Strange over Isaiah Likely?
Today, yes. Maybe
Interesting.
I like the
I don't
upside.
know if I
If I'm building if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars, team who's competing in the AFC, I
yeah.
need Brendan Strange, right? Because I know what I can get out of him, and he has more upside to grow. Isaiah Likely, his floor has been much lower than Brendan Strange's floor. I think that his ceiling could be higher just because of his build and his athleticism, but I mean,
It's fair.
it's kinda like Kyle Pitts, right? Like, how long were we saying Kyle Pitts doesn't deserve to get paid? And then eventually he did break out, but it was kind of up in the air if he was going to get to that
Yeah.
point.
I think that's fair. That is a fair take. I don't know. The Jaguars, like you said, I think their GM is in over his head. I don't think he really knows what he's doing with this team. The way they handled this offseason, letting ETN walk, genuinely made no sense to me.
Devin Lloyd, dude.
Devin
Devin Lloyd
Lloyd
was the heart and
walking,
soul of that
and
defense.
he really like he had this kind of season that was like, okay, you're gonna pay him like this. It just felt like a given, and they let him walk so easily. He was an early departure in free agency to the Panthers, and
And he didn't even get that much. Like, I know
yeah,
Carolina
it
paid him, but
wasn't a
they could have
crazy
paid him.
contract. It wasn't, but it wasn't anything astronomic where you're like, okay, the Jaguars couldn't have matched this. It was
Yeah.
definitely a reasonable contract, and I don't know. I'm not a fan of the Brenton Strange deal, but I do think, like you said, it could make sense. And if it ends up being cheaper than the 48 mil and closer to the just guaranteed money, I'd be fine with it nonetheless. Anyways, moving on to the Geno Smith situation. Geno Smith was allegedly he was accused of alleged domestic abuse, I believe, or battery, or something like that. And in my eyes, did you watch the video, Ty? Did you watch the video of the interaction between him and
Of
the
her, like,
woman?
recording him as he's yeah.
In my opinion, that video did not look good for either party. I just was kind of like the girl kind of seemed a little crazy because she runs away screaming after they're kind of done talking, screams help, help, like he walked away. She starts doing that. That seemed a little strange. I, this situation, I really cannot say anything. I do think that Geno Smith will probably play unless crazy evidence comes out in the next few months. We've seen much worse evidence get put out there, especially with like Rashi Rice this past offseason with the girl that said that he allegedly abused or assaulted her. That was kind of more of a problem in my eyes than anything we've seen so far with this Geno Smith news. But what are your thoughts, Ty, on this?
Yeah, I mean, the story's pretty damning. Like it pretty much she said that, she had to take care of his
Yeah,
autistic son because he's too busy playing video games and watching pornography.
yeah.
It's not a great look for a guy who's, 35 years
He's
old. Like you
he's
expect
older.
to be a grown man. And we talk a ton about Brendan Sorsby and being the quarterback of a team. And do you want a guy like that leading your organization? Do I want a guy like Geno Smith leading my organization if these allegations are even part true, right? Like
Yeah,
if he didn't, assault this woman, right? But the rest of it's true, do I still want him, leading my organization? Like not
yeah,
really. Like no part of this is great for Geno Smith. So if any bit of it is true, yeah, not great for the Jets. I mean, listen, they are probably going to move on from Geno Smith after this year, assuming that they go out and they draft a quarterback next year. There was talks about them being after Sorsby. So unless Cade Klubnik comes in this year and surprises everyone, they're going to be looking for a quarterback in the 27 draft, especially having 3 first-round picks. But man, I mean, Gino, like, what are you doing at this rate, dude? Like, you're a grown man. Take care of your business, especially the stuff with the son. Like, if that's true, I mean, that is just ridiculous. And it's such a double standard. Like, I hate that everyone will talk about how we don't want Brendan Sorsby, leading an organization because he's gambling, but someone is allegedly assaulting a woman and being a terrible father, and we're totally fine with it. I mean, like you said, Geno Smith will likely end up playing, maybe a couple game suspension if anything comes out of it, but this was our whole point with the Brendan Sorsby stuff. It's
Mhm.
like there are much worse things that have been done in this world, and zero to minimal punishment is handed
Yep.
out, and zero to minimal backlash is handed out. Right, there was so much backlash for Brendan Sorsby that he's had to deal with, and rightfully so, right, because he went against what the NCAA allows in their game, but. I mean, we're literally going against the law at this point, and people
Yeah.
are willing
And
to
that's
let
the
it
only
go.
the only reason why I'm relatively neutral on this situation right now is just because there hasn't really been like substantial proof. But as soon as if that came out that like this was all true, I'm like, yeah, Geno Smith shouldn't be playing. Like, this is just how it is. But an assault, abuse, kinda just you get a few games suspension, you're kind of back. Like, like you said, it doesn't get viewed in the same light that the Swordsby situation does. I feel like if you're someone that is abusing anyone, no team should be willing to pay you, but they will because you're making them money, and I think that's kind of where the NFL is at, and that's why the Swordsby situation is bad because it's a threat to their money. That's the reason why he's getting banned, not because of what he did individually in comparison to these guys that, yes, it is ethically bad, but it's not hurting their money as much. So they just kind of
Mm,
sweep it under the rug, which it just seems crazy. But yeah, once anything actually gets proven, yeah, I think Geno Smith should be gone if that's the case. And he's not good enough of a quarterback either to even
yeah,
close to
right.
justify him staying. Like if you're the Jets and any of this is proven true, you just kind of I think you either cut him or you just bench him. You're just like, okay, we're either worse without you or and we get our better quarterback, or we're just gonna pick up another veteran because it would make
Or
no sense.
Cade Klubnik turns out to be something, right? Give
Yeah.
him give him 17 games to go out there and see
Yeah.
if the late round pick is worth anything.
You're just throwing him to the wolves. But at this point, like they have a decent O line, they have weapons. If he's decent, he could probably at least make something work a little bit, and you'd see flashes. And you have 3 first rounders, like you said. So even if they fall a couple picks due to like, having just a few close wins or things like that, like you're not in a bad spot to still get a quarterback next season. Anyways, moving on from that, real quick, we got a fun little thing for you guys. We're going to break down and react to a few different dynasty trade scenarios that I found on Twitter. Here's the first one. 12 teams nine, start nine full PPR league here. We got one side got Malik Neighbors, Cortland Sutton, and a late 2027 first. The other team got Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Warren, and two 2027 fourths. Ty, if you were a team, one of the owners of either of these teams, which side would you take?
Easily the neighbor side, right? Kind of like the poll says here. Marvin Harrison has not proven anything to us in his short time in the league. It's kind of we'll see what happens with LaFleur. They're talking about how they're going to use him and Michael Wilson in this offense, but Neighbors is obviously a much better receiver than him. I think he's a better receiver than Garrett Wilson. I would take Cortland Sutton even at his at 30 years old. I'd take him over Marvin Harrison, right? I think his job got a lot easier. So I think realistically, the Neighbors team got the better of end of this deal just because Cortland Sutton and Malik Neighbors can help you win now. And then they
Yep.
get a 2027 first in the draft class that's pretty loaded, right? This other guy, he got Marvin Harrison. I like Garrett Wilson. Jalen Warren's operating in a split backfield with Rico Dowdle, and you get 227 fourths. I mean, we don't even do fourths in my leagues. Like that is, I think it's a pretty lopsided deal. Maybe this guy really needed a running back, and Jalen Warren was that, but I feel like you probably could have gave up Neighbors and Sutton for just that deal, right? I don't think you needed to give up the first.
Yeah, if anything, I could have maybe seen like a second rounder, I think would have been like fair. That's where I'm kind of looking at this deal like, okay, this makes sense because I do think like the Malik Neighbors knee injury is truly something to be worried about. And maybe in this situation, if his knee is gone, the other side of the trade ends up winning because you lose out on that big piece of the deal. But I will say, I think the Malik Neighbors side does win by a good margin, barring any injuries. Moving on to our next trade, we got Pickens, James Cook, and Isaiah Pacheco for JSN or ECRA, whatever you want to call him. Anyways, my thoughts on this is that it's relatively even because it just depends on kind of how you evaluate. And if you needed a running back, James Cook is a top tier fantasy running back. You're also getting George Pickens, who can immediately slot in as a receiver too in a fantasy team in the starting lineup. And he has high end upside, so he could end up being receiver one some weeks for a fantasy team. So you're getting two very startable players for JSN. Now, if you are a team that doesn't need extra running back help, it would make absolutely no sense. I think it's relatively even. I want to hear your thoughts, Ty, on if you think it's balanced or uneven, but I think it's relatively balanced for both teams here because you are getting two very startable players and giving up, a top tier wide receiver one. So I don't have any issues with no draft capital being thrown in here. I'd take either of these sides. Personally, I'll side with the Pickens and Cook side here. I'm going to surprise the people. I think JSN's very, very good, but we could see him fall off a little bit with the Kubiak system leaving. Sam Darnold still, in my eyes, not proven. He had multiple games where he kind of struggled last season. See how that impacts things, but I'd be on the Pickens and Cook side. What are your thoughts, Ty?
Yeah, I think JSN at minimum is a top 5 receiver, right? He's in the conversation with Jefferson, with Chase,
Definitely.
with Puka, and possibly CD, at times, maybe on Amon-Ra, right? But at least in the top 4, I think he's, kind of right above Amon-Ra and CD at minimum, right? So I think, getting rid of Jefferson, or excuse me, getting rid of Smith and Jigba is hard, but Pickens, I think, is a top 10 potential receiver.
Mhm.
James Cook has top 5 potential running back, right? Like, I think I'm a big fan of anytime you can turn a player like a JSN into 2 top 10 players. I
Yeah,
think that's a great deal. Pacheco, I mean, he's literally he's a throw-in in this deal. I don't even know why you'd want Isaiah
he's just
Pacheco.
there.
This offense is not, going to utilize him in the way that they utilize Demo, right? I think it's going to be the Gibbs show in the backfield, and then they have a lot of receiving, threats to feed. So, listen, I really think that the side that gets Pickens and Cook, I think this is a home run. I don't really even think it's that close either. I think getting a top 10 running back and a top 10 receiver for a guy who's a top 5 receiver, I think that's a home run.
Yeah,
I think
and maybe
you make out more in the points game at the end of the day.
exactly, and maybe if you're the team that gets JSN on this side, if you're a guy that has like if you have great wide receiver depth and running back depth and you're not missing out on this, like maybe that's fine. You're upgrading your starting lineup. But other than that, I would definitely favor the Pickens and Cook side. Next up, and the last one on our list, another JSN trade here. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Kyle Pitts in a tight end premium league for DeAndre Swift and JSN. Ty, based on what you were just saying about the other trade, I could kind of see where I think you're going to go with this, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't love it as much. I mean, I'm not, I wouldn't say that I'm as familiar with tight end premium. I'm not in any tight end premium leagues. I'm obviously, I know what it is, but I think, I'm a fan of swapping receivers for, a receiver like JSN for an Amon-Ra and a James Cook, right? If you could get that or something. But getting rid of DeAndre Swift, who I know that Monangai has kind of eaten into the workload a little bit, but he's still a quality back. That's a team that wants to run the football. Um, I'm really hoping that the one team really needed a tight end and the other team was kind of, had a trove of tight ends. Because I think, I mean, this is tough. Do I think that JSN JSN is far above Amon or St. Brown, right? At least 3 spots above him, I would say. Not far above, but,
Really? Yeah, I was about to say
he's at least
far.
three spots above him, kind of in the receiver rankings. Um, does Kyle Pitts in a tight end premium do enough that he's better than, that difference plus Swift? I mean, maybe. I think I could rock with it. I'm assuming that this one team needs a tight end pretty bad. So getting Amon-Ra, right? He's obviously a top, 6 receiver, I would say, for JSN and Swift, and getting Pitts. I'm assuming, Swift probably wasn't one of your top tier backs in this case. So I'll side with the Amon-Ra and Pitts side because it's tight end premium. But I think this one's a lot closer than the other one.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of the Amon-Ra and Kyle Pitts side. Not only, I will say this, I'm a huge Sun God reliever when it comes to fantasy football. He's tried and true. He knock on wood, will never let you down. He's a guy that I will always just smash the draft button if I possibly can. Kyle Pitts, I will say this in Dynasty, and Ty can attest to this in our league. I'm not a big running back fan in Dynasty. I'll take an old vet or something like that I can just kind of plug and play in the starting lineup. I want tight ends and I want receivers. That's the two positions, even in non-tight end premium. In this situation, the tight end premium, I think Kyle Pitts probably makes this deal a lot juicier. I don't know what else this guy was offering or if they were countering with anything, but the Kyle Pitts and Amon-Ra St. Brown side, I feel like is very
Look at
substantial
his
here.
team. He's got his team below.
I did
How
not
many
see
people are in
this.
this goddamn league? 12 teams, and he's got Puka and
Hold
JSN?
on. We got to zoom in as much as I can. Lamar Jackson, Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving, Puka, JSN, Garrett Wilson.
So he
Holy
ends
shit.
up with Amon-Ra. Who was his tight end there?
I just wanted to see it. He ends up with
Because
Amon-Ra and
this is
Kyle
his team
Pitts
pre-trade, I think.
instead of Kincaid. He upgrades from Kincaid.
He gets Pitts, okay, and he still has
Or
Amon-Ra.
yeah,
DeAndre
or
Swift. Look, let's see his bench real quick.
his quarterback room is nuts
Oh,
too.
well, first of all, he could just play Watson at the flex and start Stafford or Mayfield at the super flex. I mean,
And
I
he
don't
has
know why he's
Michael
not doing that in
Wilson.
the first place. Michael Wilson, quality. Chuba Hubbard, Wandale.
And he had okay. He didn't even probably really need this trade because he has Chig, and I think Chig is going to be a massive underrated tight end this year, especially in tight end premium.
I still
But
still better.
no,
Still
it's
better option.
definitely an upgrade. But yeah, his team is nuts.
His running
I
back room is definitely gonna struggle, right? Bucky in the 1A, 1B situation, Jacobs, maybe a criminal, Kyron kind of in a 1A, 1B situation. Um, although I think he's kinda got 3 guys that were in almost a split
yeah,
backfield. I think Kyron and Bucky still have really good value. Jacobs getting a little bit older, but yeah, I mean, I don't know why this guy's playing
yeah.
Watson in the super flex. That's the most
It's
bizarre thing
it's
ever.
gonna
I'd
be the
rather
stand.
play Jacoby
Yeah,
Brissett.
yeah. And he has Matthew yeah, I'd play Brissett over him too. It
He's
doesn't.
got Baker Mayfield.
And Baker Mayfield, he's got 3
What the
starting
hell is he
quarterbacks
doing?
there.
You got 3 guys that play in that flex.
Yeah, no, his receiver room is still good. I think that the trading JSN if he wanted that tight end upgrade definitely makes sense in this
Yeah.
situation. But yeah, like you said, his running back room is iffier. I mean, he's banking on Chuba Hubbard and
I mean, he's
James
got
Conner coming off the bench and Kenneth Gainwell.
well, James Conner ain't doing nothing. He's like RB3 in Arizona, but he's got the Gainwell Bucky split, right? So whoever ends up being the better back
Yeah,
there, I think it'll be Bucky, but I think Gainwell will be playable.
it
So
should be Bucky. And Ty J Spears, if Tony Pollard gets hurt, maybe becomes
Nick Singleton,
oh yes, I forgot about
I
Nick
think he's going to
Singleton.
take that job at the end of the day. I don't know if it'll be right
He
away,
definitely
but
could.
I think
He
he will. I
definitely
mean,
could.
Pollard and at least being a split with Pollard, Spears can never stay healthy, and Pollard is his contract's bigger, so I think they could cut him.
Yeah, Pollard, they probably get rid of by mid-year. I would imagine. You move on from him, but we will see. Anyways, Ty has put me on to this build a player website. I haven't played it yet myself, but we're gonna go in and build a quarterback. Let's see what happens.
Build a running back and receiver looks like it's coming soon too.
So Ty, explain this to the viewers out there.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the previous 20-0 games that we played where you spin a wheel, you get a random team, then it'll spin the wheel and give you a random quarterback. You got to pick from different physical, mental, and skill aspects. This is actually my first time playing in full. I just got put onto it today by Twitter. A couple of my friends also sent it to me. So, it looks like we got arm, legs, build, processing, leadership, vision, playmaking, and creativity, accuracy and touch, and pocket presence. So, I don't know the strat here. I think it's probably just try to take the best, but we're gonna see what we get. I mean,
All right, let's run it, Ty. I am actually pretty excited for this. So let's spin the wheel. Let's see what we get for Team Atlanta Falcons. Michael Penix Jr. This one could be
probably his arm. He's got a good arm. You're right. No one could say he doesn't have a strong arm. They could say he doesn't have maybe the most
yeah.
accurate.
Yeah, his accurate. So is it arm here is just for depth? Because there is the accuracy, right? It's just being able to throw the ball
Yeah, so
far.
accuracy and touches skills down below. So this is just arm strength.
All right, next spin. We got the Green Bay Packers. Give us
Jordan Love.
A-Rod. Oh,
Oh,
Tyrod Taylor. Interesting. It's probably leadership. He's been on every single team in the
right.
league,
He's a
and he's a
leader.
vet.
Yeah.
That's about the
We get
which
one respin as well, but I'm fine with
oh, we
taking
could've
a
we coulda
leadership.
used it there, but
Well, we could get worse. Justin Herbert? Oh,
okay, respin. DJ Ukulele.
his build, though. He's like 6'5". I'll trust you if you want a respin, but that's the best he's got for us.
Yeah, let's respin. Let's just see. Let's test it out.
Trey Lance, oh, not any better.
How
Arguably worse.
Oh,
I gotta go with his
wow.
legs. He's a solid enough athlete.
I'm surprised his legs are only a B. I thought
Yeah,
he was, a little bit quicker. Not quicker necessarily, but more
good scrambler.
talented in that, aspect. Jaguars, Trevor
Okay,
Lawrence.
this is
Here
good.
we go. Wow, they're not grading him well at all.
His build, I mean, he's a prototypical build.
Yeah, I
But
think that's probably the highest.
we could hold build, right? For another guy like DJ Ukulele, who's bad and has got a good build. We used our respin.
So would you go accuracy touch over
I
build
probably
here?
would. I probably would.
Still
It's
bad.
not bad. B plus.
Next up, we got the Vikings. Give
Oh,
us Carson. So we go build here. So you're right. You kind of navigated that situation pretty well, Ty.
Some of the physicals, you got a 6'4", 230. We'll take that. This is an ugly image.
Oh
Mac
my
Jones.
God, Mac Jones. Terrible.
Processing or pocket presence here.
Mac Jones is. I would say processing over pocket
I would
presence
say that as well. Yeah.
because I feel
I'm
like
fine.
for him, he's a pretty good processor. This year,
He's
like he
smart
finds
enough
the right
guy.
guy in the right time.
Joe
Joe
Milton.
Oh, that would have been
Oh
so
man,
good for arm. Would have
the
been
arm would have been playmaking, I guess, creativity.
see, how does it even know? How does he even know it's playmaking? He hasn't really done anything. Let's see.
He doesn't really play make. That's
Can
the
he
thing.
pick? Ty, we
Oh,
might have built the shittiest quarterback. We might have to go back to back. We might have to
we
run
might got to
another
run that
round.
back. Yeah. But let's finish out this one. Oh my God, it's a vision.
There's one
Oof,
more.
okay.
Giants, Jameis Winston.
Oh man,
I mean, we might have built the shittiest quarterback you could have built.
78 overall.
They didn't give us a great.
Send the
A
season.
great,
Send the season with him. This is a piece
They
that
put
I
him on the
didn't know.
Chiefs. They put him on the
Oh,
Chiefs.
we're winning the Super Bowl. Send that season, boy. That's it. Okay. That's
We
not
went
great.
8 and 9 and missed the playoffs. That is.
Okay, I actually really like this game.
But I will
One
say,
more, one.
solid. We put up a solid quarterback stat line here. It wasn't
For as
on
bad
us.
as this guy was, yeah. One
The
more. We gotta
38
rip one
sacks
more.
is kind of rough. But.
Damn, bro.
All right, how do we? Let's see. Go here. How do we restart, Ty?
Just maybe click build a player on the top left.
You were right.
There we
You
go.
were 100% right. All right, classic.
All right, one
Let's see if it
more.
gives us
This
the
better
same
be
team,
good.
same guys.
Patriots, Drake May, Baron Morton. Okay.
Wow.
We might just have to respin.
Yeah, I'm not. He doesn't even have a single.
Oh
Tommy
my God.
They're just giving us the backups. That's all this is. I would say I'm surprised his legs are like a little bit better. Or the
Yeah, legs are,
creativity. I mean, he at least was moving around in the pocket when he was playing.
yeah.
I would go. I would go one of those two. Because I feel like we're less limited.
Let's go with his legs.
I feel like we're less limited there.
Yeah.
That's a rough respin. Carson Beck.
Not good. Okay.
They're just
I say we go with his build.
He's a little bit taller.
6'2", 220. Could be worse.
Colts Riley Leonard.
Leadership. He's a leader.
He's a leader. It's a good shout, Ty. That is a good shout right there.
Notre Dame guy.
Titans, bro, what are they giving us? This is just horrific. We got to go with arm.
We better get like Joe Burrow or something.
Unless we want to go like vision.
Nah, I mean his arm. We got to try to get a smart guy. I mean, we're screwed at this, right?
We are cooked. Give us Cam. Kenny Pickett once
Kenny
again.
again, his accuracy is the best
He's
we got.
finding our
As
ways.
long as it's not his
way more.
hands.
There we
Darnold,
go.
okay. Processing.
Solid processing. There we go. Even though his processing at times becomes that of a
Dak,
weirdo.
let's go.
There's the do we want vision or pocket presence? Which do we think we're gonna get a shittier quarterback at?
I feel like
It's completely
you
random.
gotta go vision, maybe.
Yeah, let's do it. Broncos Peyton. Bo.
Okay, playmaking
go.
creativity.
It went
Let's
better.
go.
Here we go.
B
One more.
plus is
One more.
disrespectful for
Ravens
him.
and Lamar.
Pocket
Pocket
presence.
presence,
This
there
might
we
be a
go.
good quarterback. 79.
Lower than our last score. This is rough.
How's
This
it
is a
even
rough look.
possible?
It's got. I mean, we only have one C on the board, and it's Tommy DeVito.
Let's run this for
simulate
the
the
next
season.
12 hours.
Oh,
we're screwed.
The Saints. Oh, we're winning. 9-8.
9-8. Missed the
Somehow
playoffs.
better than last season, but oh my god,
A lot of sacks.
the sacks are absurd, but the touchdown to interception ratio is there.
Solid. This could be Tyler Shuck next year.
Oh, we'll have a better record, but don't worry. But anyways, that will do it for this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed all these, the little throw-ins at the end, and let us know your thoughts on the Brendan Sorsby situation. I want to hear what everyone else thinks about that, because as we said, we both are on the side of him being able to join the league. So let us know if you guys are against him joining the league. We always love opposing viewpoints. That'll do it for this episode. You guys know to find us on social media at Jenks Island, and wherever you get your podcast at Jenks Island as well. And we'll see you guys next week.